Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. On the last episode, we did the first of a two-parter with David Fletcher on understanding the value you provide as an entrepreneur. So today I want you to enjoy the second part of this podcast where we delve deeply into that topic, and we also look at his newest book going to be coming out in 2020. The Sales Playbook. And if you missed the part one, you really want to go back and listen to it because it lays an incredible foundation for today's podcast. And you can find that at www.authortoauthority.com/podcast /S2-EP11. So season 2, episode 11. Enjoy the episode. So getting back to one of the key points is this all ties back to the value that you provide. And I think that's probably one of the key things that we're talking about today is understanding that value. And so when you look at value, because sometimes people have a hard time assigning monetary value to values that are maybe not necessarily monetary. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Because sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, we way underprice our services because we don't understand the value we provide.
Right. That's actually a great point. And I've been guilty of it. I think we've all been guilty of it because we're more focused on winning the business, and we undervalue ourselves as a result of that because we're more focused on, I need to bring this work in, whether it's a project, a retainer, whatever it is you might be selling. And that's exactly what we do. We devalue ourselves by giving such a ridiculous price, and then you get into it and you might be 3 months into a 12-month retainer or 4 months into a retainer, for example, and I'm speaking from our experience. And then you start thinking, wow, this isn't worth it because now I'm running my numbers and we're not even making any money. Well, that's great. We have a 12-month retainer and it's keeping a resource or two busy, but if we're not making money, why are we doing it? Right. And so I want to touch on a bigger topic called a client health index, but we are as sales consultants and sales coaches very focused on helping entrepreneurs understand their value and price it appropriately. Now, obviously, you have to know what the market prices most things at. And I know, for example, the SDR service that we do here at Maven, it's the sales development. It's a outsourced sales process where our staff here internally is doing outbound campaigns for clients representing clients. I know we're on the expensive side, but I also know that if I priced it lower, we'd have more clients, but I'd have more clients that weren't fully invested.
Yes.
Right. And so that's what I don't want. I'd rather have less clients that are very involved, very invested, and understand and value what we do versus, a lot of other accounts that, yes, they sign on because it's cheaper, but they don't really value it. They don't respect it. They don't appreciate it. And I'm speaking from experience because we were at that point. When we first started the business, that's where we were. And we were, basically, we did not value ourselves properly. And as a result, we had very unhealthy clients. And that's why I mentioned the client health index. We go through each of our clients, and there's 8 categories. And we go through each of our client. And at the end of the day, what we're focused on is, are they making us better? If they make us better and we're not losing money, but if they make us better, that's a good account. That's a good client, right? Wow. So did we price it right? Are we using the right technologies? Do we have the right resource on the project? Are they getting value? Do they respect what we do? Do they understand what we do? All these different things we weigh and we measure it every month because it changes, right? Yeah. And we measure it every month. The minute we see that a client isn't, we rate them on 1 to 5, and if they are below a 3, we then have a powwow internally and say, okay, what are we going to do about this account? And we do fire clients. As crazy as that might sound,
Yep.
we do fire clients, because if you have a client that you're working with, working for, whatever you position yourself as, if they're not valuing what you do, if they don't appreciate the work that you're doing, if they don't understand the work that you're doing, they're not making you better as a company, you need to get rid of that. You've got to trim that off, trim that fat off of that delicious steak, and let's go find some more fresh opportunities, right? Because the time we spend working with a customer that's not the right customer is opportunity cost. We're missing out on better customers because we're so focused on trying to make that one happy that we're not taking advantage of the time that we should have to go find a better one. And that's something that when I do a lot of small business coaching, especially locally, with some of the different networking groups and so forth. When I tell them this, it freaks them out. They're like, I can't fire a client. I worked so hard to get it. Agreed. You probably did work hard to get it, but you know why you had to work so hard to get it? Because it was probably the wrong client from the beginning. And you have to be able to identify that early on in your sales process so that you don't engage with them. Now,
Yes.
there will be clients that look great and you get them on and now you're working with them and then you realize they're a bad fit. They're the ones that you have to pay attention to and start to figure out, how do I make it better, or when do I cut my losses and move on?
Yeah, it was
Right?
funny. I had a conversation actually probably last week, and you know, about a very similar topic, and out of my mouth came, "I'm tired of that person sucking me dry."
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so if you were to cut those losses and move on, and you can look at it, and I do this all the time as a business owner, sometimes I look at accounts as a dollar figure
Mm-hmm.
and the impact it'll have on the business, and we had one recently just before the holidays that we cut ties with. We just said, you know what, it's not a fit, it's not working the way we want it to work, and it was better off to cut them off and lose that revenue, because
Yes.
the revenue wasn't worth the additional work and the stress that they were putting the sales rep under, because it was one of our outsourced sales rep positions, and it wasn't worth it for her. We,
Mm-hmm.
to the point that she probably could have quit if we let it keep going.
Yeah.
But we had to make a change and do something different, and as a result, now she's very happy. She's actually on a new account, and it's going well. She's very successful, and so you have to know when. You have to be able to identify it early enough, and then know when it's time to make a change, and make that change. Don't be afraid to make that change, and again, that helps you with your value, because you will feel, as an entrepreneur and business owner, you will feel so much better about your business when you could say, you know what, I'm getting rid of that 10K a month revenue, which sounds crazy as a small business owner, but I'm going to get rid of that because I know I'm going to go find a different 10K a month revenue that will be better for us, that will
Yeah.
be healthier for us. And it does exist. It does happen. As long as you have a good sales process and you're doing all the things you should be doing, you can go find that other opportunity.
Yeah, and the thing is that most entrepreneurs don't take into effect what that amount of stress is doing to them personally and
Sure.
professionally.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Because when you're under that much stress from a client you really shouldn't have, it doesn't just stop at the end of the workday. You carry that home, you think about it, you dream about it, you wake up dreadful, you're cranky, you're have low tolerance because you're just dealing with a person who's constantly pushing your buttons and demanding things from you that they shouldn't be.
Hmm.
So, when you look at that cost, what is that ROI? Not only financially, but physically, mentally, emotionally, is it affecting your team? I've had a few clients that, I took the brunt of everything to make sure that my team members were not
Right.
taking the brunt.
Right.
And, the toll on me was very hard. right? And so it was one of those things that we got that project done and that was it. Like, we're not working with you anymore. Don't care
Right.
if you want to come back. You're not a good client. Now, and then we don't tell people that,
Sure.
but
Right.
that
That's
was
right.
the thing. It's like, no, sorry, you're not worth it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's very important. And as small business owners and entrepreneurs, we're going to struggle with that because we don't want to lose any business, no matter
Mhm.
what. And that is something, I'm glad you brought up the family component of that, because I know for my situation, my wife's in the business. So right now my wife actually runs the business more than I do, because I'm out and I'm with clients, and so for us, it was, when we have an unhealthy client, it's not a at work conversation, it's a at home conversation, a dinner conversation, a weekend conversation. We're at my son's hockey, we're in the ice rink having that conversation. It doesn't go away.
That's right.
It doesn't go away. And that's when you have to say, okay, you know what, we got to make a change. We'll be better without, and not be afraid to pull the trigger so that you can go find something better.
Mhm.
Go find something better. And I want to parlay that right into, if you are focused on selling and you do have a sales process, you won't hesitate to fire a client, because you'll have the confidence that you can go out and find another customer. And that's really one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs struggle with, is that outbound sales and committing the time to sell. And when they start to say to me, yes, I know we got a good service, we're doing well, I have great employees, I just don't have time to sell. That's no one's fault but yours. You
Yes.
have to make time to sell, whether it's calendar blocking or however you want to do it. You have to have a CRM. You have to have a system in place that allows you to document your calls, document your emails, track your interactions, as well as create tasks and ticklers for follow-up and so forth. And once, as an entrepreneur and small business owner, you start to build that system, and you put that system in place, you're going to bring in another account. It's only a matter of time,
Yeah.
right? And so as a result, you can get rid of that unhealthy account, because you're going to replace them. It might take 30 days, it might take 90 days, but you know that you can replace them.
Now let's back up just a little bit, because a lot of my listeners are very small businesses, maybe freelancers, solopreneurs, coaches, professionals, those types. So or even just maybe beginning.
Right.
Talk a little bit more about the CRM, and maybe what are a few starting points, because obviously big companies use them, but how do you implement that, like when you're a solopreneur, or you've got only a couple employees? So
Right.
it's a different, it's not different, but how do you implement that when you're such a smaller company? Like maybe you're not even making 100K yet in a year.
Right. Right. Sure. Sure. Well, the thing is, you always have to be selling,
Hmm.
right? So whether it's on the phone making sales calls from your desk, or at your child's sporting event, or at church on Sunday, every conversation you're having in the back of your mind should be, is there an opportunity here to talk about business?
Hmm.
Okay. And so it is hard for us to find time and create the systems to sell. But I will tell you that the biggest thing to do, the most important thing to do, is to create that process and
Hmm.
have a sales process in place, so that you can say, okay, I'm at the point now where things are starting to dry up, my pipeline's thin, I need to get some more in it. I should have my targets, my ideal client profiles have been identified, I've got some target accounts, let's go after them. And now, how do I go after them? That's different for everybody. But the biggest thing to do, the most important thing to do, is to be consistent in your outbound process, and to follow it. You
Hmm.
can't blow it off. So I work with a lot of companies, and I share with them best practices when it comes to that cadence.
Hmm.
When do I send an email? When do I follow up? people don't know that. Fortunately, we spend a lot of time studying that, and we work
Mhm.
with other groups like Gartner Group and some others that spend a lot of money to figure out the best time to do that. And so then we implement that with our customers and help them understand, hey, if I sent an email today, if it was opened, I call tomorrow. If it wasn't, I call 2 days from now. And you build all that into your system. You create that process so that now I've got a what I call a tickler system, and you know, dating myself a little bit, but back in the day, that's what we had before we had all this technology. We literally had a card box full of index cards, and that was our tickler, right? If I called John at ABC Company, I wrote the date and LM and then put him back into, 3 months from now. And it would come up again at that point. And so now you have all this technology that allows you to do that. So you can build a sales process and you can use the technology to help you build the process. And there are free CRMs all over the place. HubSpot, obviously we do a ton of HubSpot work. HubSpot has a free CRM, and I tell people all the time that don't have CRMs, or if they're paying for a CRM and they're not using it, they need to get on the HubSpot platform and use the freemium model, because it'll do most of the things that a small business owner needs to do.
Okay.
And that's how they can start to build their process, and they can start to create a sales mentality
Mm.
within not only themselves, but within the team, because everybody should be selling all the time.
Mhm.
Now, don't let that get confused with the old ABC, always be closing, because that is absolutely not what we preach and we should be doing. Always be helping. Always be helping. So the minute, there's someone that's talking about a sales problem, I throw something to them like, hey, check this out, or read this blog, or have you considered this? Don't have a CRM? You should have a CRM, and here's why. Here, read this blog I wrote about CRMs. Right? And so those are the things that you need to do first in order to start to build the process. And once you build that, and you have that in place, it's really easy to say, okay, we need to turn it up. Let's turn it up.
Yeah.
We just get people into the process and we follow the process. The other thing to that is, once you build a sales process, you make it scalable. Now, as you grow, maybe you hire someone and they're going to be doing
Mm.
sales for you.
Yes.
They follow the process. You've already tweaked the process to what works. Now they just have to follow that process, right? So you
Mm.
can bring in a new person, and once they understand the value of who you are, what you do, how you do it, the messaging statement, and so forth, now you can say, hey, just follow this process. Here it is. and
Yes.
and and that works really well. That works really well. So that's why that becomes very, very important.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I think you and I are going to be talking a little bit later.
Yes, there you go.
So we also want to make sure that we talk about David's newest book that's going to be coming out in 2020, and that's called The Sales Playbook. And I'm very honored to be helping David with his book. So David, talk a little bit about the book and your journey so far.
Sure, absolutely. The cool thing about the book is that the book is one of it's talking about one of the most important tools
Mm.
in growing sales. And the sales playbook, which for many people, they don't even understand what a playbook is, or they think they know what a sales playbook is, but they don't use it properly, or they haven't built it the right way, or whatever the case might be. And that's why it's so important to share this information. And I work with so many different companies and have helped them build sales playbooks, and I've seen it be successful for companies. I've seen them grow sales. I've seen them better coach their people, because it helps them identify weaknesses in their sales team and their marketing team, that it only made sense to write a book about it and share that with as many people as possible. They don't have to just be a client to learn about it. By writing this book, I can now share it with more people, and hopefully, and that's the always be helping approach that
Yes.
I preach, and that's what I want to do. I want to help people. You don't have to come to us to do the playbook. We're not the only people that can help you do a playbook. There's tons of firms out there that will help you do a playbook. You can also do it yourself if you can commit to the time. And I'm going to, in the book, show people how to create a playbook, why you want to create a playbook, why you want to go to the executive team and say, I need this sales playbook and we need to take the time to do it and let's commit to it and here's why. And so that's really the thought process behind the book and the passion for writing this book. It's just right now in the market today, one of the best tools to help businesses grow. And so because I spend so much time working on that and talking about it, it only made sense to find a great publisher like yourself to help me get this book to the market and share it with people. Yeah, and so talking a little bit about the process, I think that was the second part of your question. Love the process. For me, the most difficult part of the process is just time. Forcing myself, because you know how difficult it can be in my calendar, and with my travel, and I speak at different engagements, and so it does get tough. But the process with you and working with you and your team has been great. I really enjoy it, to the point that we actually have plans for 2 more books after this. So we're looking at it, and I know that I've shared this with you earlier that ideally I want to get this one finished. I've already got ideas for the next book, and then we're kicking around 4 different ideas for the 3rd book. So we know that this is the right thing to not only help people, but to build my brand. Right. And that's a great thing about getting a book out there. You have to show expertise, and you have to be able to share this. And again, it comes right back to value, create value. And I can have more value by sharing this expertise, by pushing a book out to the market. And this will help me, be a trusted resource. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most. Those people will want to buy from you because they trust you, they believe what you're saying, they know that you have this expertise, and there's value. And that's a great way to do it. And that's why writing a book is so important to me and to the business.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing. Sometimes people are uncomfortable with selling.
Right.
And especially as entrepreneurs. But the nice thing about the book is that because you provide that tremendous amount of value, the book actually sells you.
Correct.
So we always recommend, obviously I'm a publisher, I recommend people write books,
right.
But it's not just about writing a book, it's about writing that signature targeted book that addresses problems and issues, right? Because one of the reasons to write the book is just to show people that you are that credible, trustworthy, kind, caring expert who just wants to help.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. And that's the best part about writing the book, is getting that out to help others. And just as you said, that is a sales, I don't want to call it tactic, but that is a sales methodology tool. Absolutely. That, that will drive what we love, inbound leads, that will drive traffic. It will grow the base of people that listen to the things I say, that read my blog, that want to learn more. And so that there's a lot of value there. And so it's worth the time to meet with you as often as we meet, and to talk through the book, and to review chapters and all the work. Like it's not an easy process, but it's a good process, and there's a lot of value to it, because once that is completed and you can go to market with that, it like you said, it's a great sales tool, and it will sell for you. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most, because as small business owners and entrepreneurs, we are all in sales. We're always selling, and that's just another way to continuously sell. And that's just like our websites and our blogs and everything else. We want them selling for us 24/7. Well, now let's write a book, get the book out to the market. Now that's out there selling for you 24/7. So there's a lot of value in getting a book published.
Now, I've got one more question for you before we're done today, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals out there who are thinking about writing a book. So let me ask you, what made you consider working with myself as a publisher to help you get this book out?
Great question. And I got to tell you, I was looking at writing a book probably 4 years ago, was when it first came up. and we talked about it internally. We kicked around some ideas. I actually created a couple of different outlines of potential books, and it kind of fell apart. And it fell apart mostly because of the commitment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there was a lot of great ideas, but we had so many great ideas that was just one of many, and it kept getting pushed, kept getting pushed, kept getting pushed, and then I was having a conversation with Larry, and Larry was talking about writing his book and the experience that he was having. And I said, you know what? That's the experience that I need, because I have this desire to write a book. More than one. I have a desire to write books, and I was struggling. Like, how do I get it started, and how do I get it to the publisher? How do I get a publisher involved? Like, there were all these missing components, and I just didn't have the time to do the research, do the networking, to find someone that could help me. And I kid you not, Larry and I were talking about one of the events that I was speaking at. He was like, hey, I'd really like to speak there next year. And so we were talking about it, and I was helping him. I was introducing him to the people that he needed to talk to try to get on the ticket for next year. And he's like, you know what? It'd be a great time for me to talk about my book. And I said, whoa, what book? Tell me more. And so we started talking about it. And he said, I will introduce you to Kim. I said, that is exactly what I need. So that's how it all came about. It's something that I knew personally I needed to do, because it's my brand, and I need to work on my brand and really kind of elevate it a little bit, and become known in the marketplace for certain things, and I knew that the book would help do that. And so getting introduced to you and to RTI certainly got me there and put me in that position where now we're in the process and going through, and I'm excited that hopefully we'll have this completed and published in June of this year.
Yep.
So
That's the game plan.
exactly. And so looking forward to that, because then I want to start working on book number 2. And we'll get that published as soon as possible as well. So, but yeah, that's kind of what was going on, and we were really working through it. And meeting you was a blessing, because it was a struggle. It was, and my wife and I, Shannon, we kept talking about the writing and the process, and going through that, and the fact that she studied as an English major, ended up becoming a project that I was kind of leaning on her for. And and it's hard to write a book and run a business at the same time,
Yes, it is.
because it takes time. You don't just sit down and type out a bunch of words. It's not the you have to be able to tell the story, and how does that story unfold, and that's the great thing about working with you. You manage that process, and you help us tell that story, and I love that in the work that we've been doing together.
Well,
So
thank you. The same thing goes for me. I mean, I've been working on this author to authority book well over a year now, maybe a year and a half since the first time. But it's like the shoemaker who works on
right.
everybody else's shoes and doesn't get a chance to work on his own shoes. So one of my goals for 2020 is having brought on more staff to handle more things, is to open up time for me to do the writing that I want to do.
Right. That's right.
So I have, as an entrepreneur, not as a publisher, but as an entrepreneur, I have that same problem. How do you find the time? How do you find the space? So, if this is something that you've been thinking about, as a listener, contact me. Go to the RTI Publishing, so rtipublishinghouse.com, and there's a get a quote button. And, just contact me if that's something that you've been thinking about. If you know that you need to write that book as that, that sales marketing tool to build your business, as that branding positioning tool, then contact me. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if we're a right fit for each other. Because not always, but you know what? I always have lots of resources, lots of help. And I love the conversation. So David, thank you for an amazing podcast. And I'm pretty sure we will end up breaking this into 2 episodes.
Okay.
But thank you for being on. and for sharing from the heart and just really providing such immense value. Now, just before we close, how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me, Kim. I've enjoyed the conversation. I always enjoy our conversations. We always have very good conversations, and getting involved and being on the podcast has been great fun for me today. In terms of my social accounts, for example, Twitter and Instagram, they're both the same. The handles are the same. It's Fletch, Fletch, Fletch underscore sales guy. That's the best way to find me, to follow me, to connect with me. And on Facebook, it's David Fletcher Maven Sales. That's my Facebook account, and so obviously on LinkedIn, you can find me, David Fletcher. But yeah, I would love to connect with some of your audience and be able to have sales conversations and give sales ideas with anyone that is struggling with sales or looking to sell more or sell better. Absolutely, reach out to me, and I've got a number of different tools and things that would help you as an entrepreneur, as a sales leader, to sell more and so forth. So that's the best way to connect with me, and obviously on my channels, because I do have, as you mentioned, 5 kids. Not only do I have 5 kids, they are 5 sons. So it's like living in a frat house. So there's also a lot of funny things that happen on my social channels that I like to share, because that you have to be real, and
Exactly.
I am real, and we do have fun with all these kids that we're trying to raise. So there's a lot of funny and crazy things on my social channels as well. So it's not all sales related, but please connect with me. I would love to interact with some of your listeners.
I think we need to give your wife an award. 5
No kidding.
boys.
No kidding. No kidding. Isn't that the truth? Some people say, "Oh, you do a lot of travel because you're in sales, right?" I'm like, "No, I do a lot of travel because I have 5 kids." Uh, but hey, she has a trip coming up. She will actually be at the Social Media World Conference, because she runs social media management for a number of clients, and so that's one of her areas of expertise. So she's going to be gone for a week, and hopefully the kids and I can have dinner and cook and not burn the house down. Knock on wood. Good Lord, we can survive without mom for a week. Let's see what happens.
I suspect you'll be kissing her feet by the time she gets back.
Oh, you know it. You know it. Absolutely.
Well, this has been, I'm Kim Thompson-Pinder, and this is David Fletcher. We've been on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.